Hello, everyone. It's the beginning of week 11, uh, a transition week, a kind of a bridge week. We're moving from Palmer and a kind of emphasis upon personal spiritual formation to our new text, practicing theology, which I'll say more about later, with an emphasis upon the spiritual formation of the church. I'll leave it as that kind of shorthand for now. It's more complicated than that, but that's where we'll begin. So, with this week, we come to the end of our time with Parker Palmer, almost said Arnold Palmer, and Let Your Life Speak. I can see that you have been both challenged and encouraged by this text. I hope and pray that in some small and some significant ways, this little book has been effectual for you in your consideration of your own formation. I know that I have been moved and challenged by the honest transparency of your thoughtful journaling. There are times when I have been in tears, times when my heart leapt for joy, and times when I was just blown away by the insights on the book and from your life. I certainly thank you for all of that. It warms the cockles of this whole teacher's heart. As we turn to the final two chapters of Let Your Life Speak, Palmer focuses on two key themes. The first, leadership, and the second, wholeness. Two themes that bridge from the first weeks of the class to the last weeks of the class and remind us that a formational journey is never private. Your final text is practicing theology. I hope you have a copy. You're going to need it. We won't be able to access the whole book. It's a big book and it's a rich book, but it's the best book I could find for what I think we need to be doing in these final few weeks. I have selected key sections and we'll let you know all about that as we move on. I would encourage you, however, if you have time between now and I guess week 12, to read the introduction to that text, certainly before you read the assigned readings. Introductions are often ignored and sometimes deserve to be ignored. But in this book, this is particularly important, and it will matter for you to read it before you engage the assigned essays in the text. You'll also notice in the learning activities posted for this week a call for a reflection on the spiritual journey you chose and are practicing. Please note that I've added an assignment for this reflection. Please submit it there. You'll also find on the description of the assignment some prompts, suggestions, and expectations that will help you to complete a short, personal 1 to 2 page reflection on your experience with the spiritual practices you engaged in. Now on to Palmer, chapters 5 and chapter 6. First, in chapter 5, after the darkness of chapter 4, where Palmer writes of his depression and his journey in and out of depression, he takes us out, as it were, to leadership, which may seem as a kind of an odd place to go. But I think you'll see as you begin to read that chapter that it's not at all an odd place to go. And the discussion in the previous chapters on our shadow side, we're reminded that we're called out of those shadows and into leadership. And if we don't, if we get stuck in our shadows, our leadership becomes shadowy. That's where the whole theme of wholeness comes in, which is what chapter 6, the final chapter, is about. But before you read and work with the prompts of chapter 5, I invite you to please watch a 5-minute video. It's posted on Canvas. It's only 5 minutes. It's Parker Palmer talking again about the divided self. I think this very brief, excellent introduction or commentary on that idea of the divided self is potently important for these 2 chapters. You'll find the URL for that on Canvas. Second, chapter 6, using the old and familiar, and we might even say sometimes kind of trite metaphor of the 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, which always makes me think of a James Taylor song. Palmer invites us into the notion that wholeness, and I think in the context of our earlier conversation about holiness, are not achieved all at once, that it's seasonal, it's difficult, it's never ending. That, I think, is most important, that we're talking about not arriving, we're talking about being on a journey. It's not static, and progress in the sense is not what we're talking about, at least not in the sense of we just keep getting better and better and better. It is possible, he reminds us, that in the midst of spring, which we're now in, right, we may find ourselves sweating as if it were summer, or freezing like I am today in the cold of winter. Yet all seasons are essential to achieving holiness. In important ways, these chapters are building bridges to what comes next in our study of formation. And that is to the role of leadership and formation in the life of the community. Beginning that week, we turn our attention to formation in the life of the church and begin to think together about spiritual formation in the context of congregational life. Still seeking answers to the question of congruence, we now will broaden our exploration, but more about that next week. So, how to proceed? Well, watch the Palmer video, The Divided Life. Read the chapters, the final 2 chapters, 5 and 6, and complete your journal reflections based on those prompts that are there. I look forward to what you have to say. I also look forward to your spiritual reflection piece. You'll also find one other tool there, a kind of assessment. It's titled My Journey in Love. This invites you to find some closure, I think, over the first part of the journey as we cross a bridge, so to speak, into the larger context of community life. Think of it as a kind of breathing space to stop, look back, reflect on where you've been, and then looking forward, perhaps with some new energy, and taking the next first step on the journey. As always, looking forward to further conversations with you. You are a delight, and I have so enjoyed working with you, getting to know you better, and learning from you. God bless you as you continue on your journey.